This is an S tier movie. This is an A tier movie. This is where we put great films with little to no issue. I cannot accept nostalgia a good enough reason to move an A tier movie to S. Which, that in itself could be the whole video. But now I'll prove to you guys are just nostalgic, and Iron Man 1 is just great.
I see it everywhere in Marvel tier list. Iron Man 1, the pinnacle of Marvel cinema. The first MCU movie. A masterpiece. In this episode of In Attack of, I take your most beloved opinions and rip them to shreds because you guys have some seriously whack takes. Guessing by you seeing the title of this video and immediately asking yourself, but Drew, Iron Man is great. How could you hate it? Well, let me explain myself.
What should an MCU movie achieve? What makes it good? Well, let's set the groundwork. Movies operate on a categorical ranking system, creating overall scores based on multifaceted cumulations of screenplay, direction, production design, acting, and editing. All rankings of movies are subjective. All rankings differ person to person, but through common consistencies, we can distinguish great films from good ones. So, Iron Man 1. Let's start with the good stuff. I tried to go into this experience as a fresh viewer, as if I had never seen the movie before in my life, which wasn't too difficult, as I had only seen the original Iron Man 1 to 2 times before this point. It's probably still the strongest Marvel opening to date. We start right in the middle of the action, where Tony is in an armed vehicle with soldiers right after testing the Jericho missile. I really like how they contrast the rich war profiteer with a humbled military soldiers. While Tony's all gassing it up, his work's finished, it's been a total success, these army soldiers know that their battle against Afghanistan has just begun, and these missiles are the next step. After some jokes and you get a little bit of character establishment, the vehicle is suddenly attacked and Tony is bombarded from his own missile. This is a great shock and turn of events where Tony gets to see that his own creation is the thing that is undoing in this moment. So it starts out in media res, meaning the movie starts in the middle and begins with a flashback, which I didn't really remember. I guess the flashback is so short, it's only a 15-minute segment, that you immediately get into the cave in no time. We do get to see Tony in an iconic light in the flashbacks. Billionaire, playboy, genius, philanthropist, yada yada yada. He does his iconic rich boy stunts. He skips winning the Apology Award?
Honored to present this year's Apogee Award.
He blows it off and sleeps with a war journalist and shows up 3 hours late to his own missile presentation. You know, silly iconic rich boy stunts. The audience at this point is freely encouraged to analyze his behavior and how he treats women, the weapons industry, the war on terrorism, war capitalism, and overall wealthy livelihood. There's a surprisingly amount of political commentary weaved into this film to great effectiveness. The movie takes such a light stance of opposition and yet uses simple storytelling to show Tony's war profiteering might not be as mutually beneficial and altruistic as the war on terrorism suggests, which is really nuanced for a Marvel film, which is just supposed to be good guy punch hit slap. Once in the cave, the audience finds out that he's been abducted and wounded by terrorists. We meet his good scientist friend that I refuse to share the name of because I never remember it and now you'll have to look it up. He's a memorable character that no one could bother to care about. I'd say Iron Man is a great superhero movie, but it's not the best MCU movie. That would be Iron Man 3. No. Wait. Simple and effective. He goes from a cocky, selfish philanthropist to a cocky, more considerate philanthropist. And I love it. I love that Tony doesn't have this overtly radical change, rather than his perspective opens up. The reserve here is intoxicating. His arc would further be explored, challenged, and defined in Iron Man 2 and 3. But what we have here is such a great direction to take the first movie of an MCU trilogy and the Iron Man trilogy. Now, you may be wondering at this point, where's the criticism? I've only admitted how wonderful this film is. Compliments here, compliment there. Well, I'll stop, okay? I'll stop. Alright? You had enough of it. So the arc unofficially finishes at the hour 15-minute mark, after Tony returns home to his beautiful life, plans to reform Stark Tech. As a side bit, he gets revenge on the 10 Rings and blows up their base, which is fair, expected by Stark and not the most heroic, but hey, you know, he never was. The movie's basically over here. Tony got his revenge, he learned his lesson, and became a quote-unquote hero. But wait! We still have 50 minutes of build-up climactic fight with Obadiah Stane, which may be the most villain name I've ever heard before. Boy is this a build-up, and boy is this forgettable. Obviously, we have very little heroic stuff from Tony has done up to this point. He's blown up some terrorists, saved a town, and saved himself. And he's kind of decided to change over a new leaf. But after Afghanistan, Stane kind of takes over, and we're just left to watch him plot and watch Tony do some tech demos. There's no real saving the cat from a tree or an old lady. It's mostly just Tony's agendas, which is cool. You know, we love watching Tony build these suits. It's great. The trials fit his character. It's fun. It's fun. Tell me again, though, how is Stark planning to reform his company? Right. You know, given the context of the story, shouldn't he be at the office figuring out how they're going to make a weapons manufacturer no longer a weapons manufacturer and still a profitable company? See, Obadiah actually uses this fear against Tony and turns the board of directors against him, which makes him a little bit of a threat. Oh, he built his own Stark suit. And he wants to fight and kill Tony. You know, it was cool whenever he stole his arc reactor and stuff. Left him for dead. If I asked you how Obadiah Stane died, most of you may say that he fell from a great height. Did you know he did not fall to his death? In fact, he was completely fine after the fall. Yep, the building broke his fall. You may have thought that Obadiah died when he fell, because there's this poetic moment early in the movie where Tony is flying up, and he gets past the atmosphere and the suit freezes up from the temperature, and he falls down and he has a near-death experience. So it's foreshadowed to be Obadiah's undoing, and there's this really cool, dramatic moment wherever Obadiah's suit freezes up as well. But that's not what happens. His death was caused by the reactor beam shooting over Tony's head into Obadiah's chest, knocking him into his own reactor core. Yet, he falls into the reactor, blowing it up, and kills Stane. Tony and Pepper are fine, even though they were literally feet away from the explosion. And the whole company turning against Tony thing is just dropped. My biggest pet peeve is how Tony fails to address the needs of his company. He's basically locked out of the shareholders, and for a good reason. Tony doesn't create any alternatives for selling his weapons. He briefly mentions using the arc reactor, but we never see it. What about the upset board of directors? Tony found out his team has been producing and selling weapons behind his back ever since he returned. No one's getting fired? How is Tony still in charge? And sure, Stane is dead, but Stark Industries is never clearly funneled in the right direction. All we have to go off of is the side projects, like the hospitals he talked about in the beginning of the film, or Barf in Ultron, or internships in Homecoming, but like, those are later movies that are retconned. No one watches Iron Man for Obadiah Stane. No one watches for Terrorist Dude, which I don't know the name of. Tony's dispute with this company is a major plot point, ignored because it's less cool than watching Stark build Texan suits. But one scene of him talking about his company could have fixed this. This is definitely a product of a Phase 1 movie, where they hide important plot points through dialogue subtext. Like, go watch Avengers 1 again. You'll notice a lot more of the plot you didn't realize you didn't understand the first time you watched it. There's a lot of other small details I don't necessarily want to add here, such as the explosion would have pierced his eyeballs through his hole in his Mark I suit. It's a little nitpicky, whereas the movie doesn't necessarily need those details to show that it ends slightly underwhelming. And it is a cool fight, with a bit of a horror homage with Pepper and S.H.I.E.L.D., which I really like, but it's also forgettable. Look, Iron Man 1, it's a good movie. It's a great movie even. And it's an even better superhero movie. It's the first official MCU movie, so it has to be amazing. Except it's not the first MCU movie. That's now the Sam Raimi Spider-Man trilogy, now that No Way Home exists. So really, Iron Man's not even important because it's not the first movie anymore. Overall, this movie is held up by nostalgia. Iron Man's a fun classic and a good time. I feel so strongly about matching the quality as Prisoners in 2013. I would honestly give those movies the same score. Now, let me tell you about Iron Man 3. Still the best Iron Man movie.